The Nerdcast Empire is on the air. This is the podcast edition of the Nerdcast Empire. I am Matt in the studio. Actually, not in the studio. We are in, I guess, our big studio for tonight's watch-along of the Royal Rumble. Of course, we did a live watch-along on this event. You can catch the VOD on that on our YouTube page or on twitch.tv/Nerdcast Empire. This is the abbreviated version, the podcast version, where we will talk about the winners and losers tonight. We're recording this, honestly, to kind of pull the curtain back a little bit before tonight's event gets started. So we are going to go in chronological order throughout the event. It should be another great premium live event. Joining me, not in studio, but in our big studio, and joining me as always in person is Mike. Mike, how's it going?
Yeah, I totally told myself to turn on the mic and then forgot to do it when it came time to. Yeah, here we are. We are here for the Royal Rumble, probably the most exciting event over the course of the year for WWE. Always some crazy surprises and kind of setting the tone for what's going to happen at Wrestlemania. So looking forward to it.
Yeah, it should be a really great event. And again, this podcast version just going to give you kind of the cut down winners and losers and what we make of it. That's what's going to be happening tonight on this podcast edition. Joining us as well in person tonight is Rachel. Rachel, how's it going?
It's going great. I am so excited. The road to WrestleMania starts tonight.
Yeah, really excited. It should be a fun night, and we're going to bring you all the winners and losers. We've got 4 matches on the card tonight, 2 Rumble matches, a undisputed WWE Championship match, and a Tag Team Championship match. It should be a fantastic event, and we're going to continue on now, and we're going to talk first about the Women's Royal Rumble match. First match on the card, the Women's Royal Rumble match in the books, and Charlotte Flair in her return after her knee injury. It's been out for quite a while, but Flair ends up coming in at 27 and outlasting everyone, eliminating Roxanne Perez last to win the Women's Royal Rumble match, and will stake her claim to one of the 2 main events at WrestleMania in Las Vegas coming up. Very entertaining match in the Women's Royal Rumble. We'll start off with Mike. Mike, your overall thoughts on the Women's Royal Rumble match. What stood out to you?
Yeah, it was a good match. It was... I don't want to say underwhelming because that's not really the word I want. It just happened. Like, there wasn't anything completely ridiculous about it, which I'm totally fine with. Obviously big having Alexa Bliss come back.
Yes.
Still kind of interested to see what they do with her moving forward, creatively speaking. Are we going to get Nikki Bella sticking around for any amount of time? That would also be a good question. Roxanne Perez, huge showing.
Yeah.
I feel like the winner of this was one of the easier picks of the night, and it certainly held true. And whichever champion she picks, I'm sure that's going to be a great match at Mania.
No question about that. Perez coming in at number 3 and lasting all the way till the last one. She was the last one eliminated right after Nia Jax was eliminated. You look at the card. I mean, everybody had a great showing. Jordynne Grace made her WWE debut as a member of the roster, and certainly had a really good showing. You look NXT, Julia and Stephanie Vaquer both had really strong showings. Nia Jax, obviously a lot of eliminations, which certainly was interesting. Jada Parker coming up had a really strong showing. Great to see her get the opportunity. I mean, everybody who was in it looked good. Even Chelsea Green, wasn't, she was the one taking a lot of the beating, but certainly I think acquitted herself very well. It's going to be really interesting to see kind of the fallout from a lot of this. Rachel, your thoughts on the Women's Rumble?
I'm glad for Charlotte because I know that she, like with that knee injury last year, I'm sure that's extremely disappointing. I was glad to see her looking good and looking back. Alexa Bliss, I was so excited to see her back. Yeah, I mean, the NXT people look great. Like Mike said, it wasn't like crazy, but it was okay. It didn't need to be crazy. It was what it was, and everyone looked great. So yeah, very good.
Yeah, I think, like you said, it to say it was underwhelming is, I guess, in some ways almost a compliment in this case, because it wasn't hotshot booking. It wasn't an outrageous, like, nonsense moments in the match. It was just very solid. Everybody that came in had a time to shine. It was just really solid, I think, and that's what you want. You brag for the entire year that you've got the strongest women's division in the world. And I don't think any of us are disagreeing with that statement, but because that's a true statement, you use your entire women's division. There were women who don't get a lot of TV time that were in this match and had solid showing. Someone like Maxine Dupree and Ivy Nile, certainly getting that opportunity, even B-Fab.
Yeah.
I think that's, a lot of the craziness of past Rumbles came because you just didn't have the personnel to fill it out. So you had to go and do something insane. Trish Stratus looked great, and you have the Elimination Chamber coming up in Toronto, and it would make a lot of sense for her to be involved in some sort of big match in Toronto. But it's exciting to see, Mike, when you look at this women's division, there's so many different options and directions you can go coming out of this. And I think that's when you've done your job the right way.
Yeah. I think one of the first things that you notice about that Rumble, and maybe that led to me suggesting it was underwhelming, is they didn't have to do like the mid-Rumble reset.
Yes.
Where they just like clear out the ring and start fresh. Like they let a lot of the women in this match hang around a long time, which is certainly a testament to the depth of the women's roster.
Yeah.
And just the confidence they have in a lot of their women to hang around and make it work. The other thing to consider is that there are plenty of men's wrestlers who are Trish Stratus's age or older that are still doing it. Like, there's no reason Stratus can't still be an active competitor.
Yeah, and I think, when you've got some of these older women wrestlers that maybe under past leadership would have, it's time for you to go. It's time for you to be out the pasture. There's no reason to do that anymore. And there's a lot more that weren't even in the match. But again, you've only got 30 slots. There's only so many people you can do that. It's going to be interesting. What do you see for Charlotte Flair at WrestleMania, Rachel? When you take a look at, I think as it stands now, both champions make for a compelling argument, but where would you like to see them go?
I'd like to see her go against Tiffany Stratton. I think both their athleticism would just put on such a big match. It'd be exciting. They're just so talented, both of them, both with like that gymnastics and like just not even necessarily wrestling background initially. I know Charlotte played like volleyball and stuff. I'm excited to see them go against each other.
For sure. That could be the match at WrestleMania coming up, but it is Charlotte Flair coming back at the number 27 spot, winning the Women's Royal Rumble, and certainly putting herself in position to have a marquee match coming up at WrestleMania. So 2 out of 3 falls for the tag titles was next, and it was DIY winning the first and third falls with a little help for fall 3 from the Street Profits showing up and costing the Motor City Machine Guns the title. But if you thought it was just a straight heel turn, it wasn't quite, because then they took out DIY after the match as well. But in the end, DIY gets the win. Really good match between those two teams, but it feels like we're building towards something bigger in the tag division. We'll start with Rachel. Your thoughts on that tag team title match? It
was a great match. Those tag teams are just so talented. And I expected DIY to win. I didn't expect Street Profits. That threw me off. And I'm excited to see what they do with them, because I feel like what they've been doing had kind of gotten stale and they really weren't going anywhere. So to see them show a little more aggression and try to get the titles back finally, I can't wait to see what they put up at WrestleMania. Yeah, definitely bringing a crutch out and inflicting some damage from everybody, and holding the titles up there at the end before finally being shooed off. Mike, your thoughts on the match? This feels like the change to the Street Profits that they've teased for like a year and we're just now getting. So I'm definitely excited about that. No surprise that the match itself was great. Two just outstanding tag teams. I'm all for there being some plot progression with this match, given the lack of matches overall in the card. Give me like a 5 or 6 team nonsense ladder match at Mania. Yeah. I think we could be on to that for sure. We've already, as you mentioned earlier, teased that maybe we'll get Guerrillas of Destiny back together. Obviously, the Usos could certainly be in that picture, and who knows who else is there teasing. Was it Crown Jewel? Was it coming up? Or there's so they must be having a Pokemon Go Fest in Riyadh. In Riyadh, I guess. Okay, that sounds good. I guess. Of course, they're going to tease the Clash in Paris coming up end of August. Of course, the last event in Paris certainly was noteworthy, and I think this will be another great PLE coming up. So they're not going to call it No Merci. It was right there. They've decided not to do that, but you can get your tickets now if you want to
head out to Paris for that. It should be a great crowd on hand for that for sure. But the tag team division, I think, really starting to build. I think that's the exciting thing right now. Really good match. Great to see the Street Profits there. The angle kind of made sense in the end of the match. You kind of wish it would have had some sort of more of a clean finish because those two guys, or those two teams, getting the opportunity to wrestle on a PLE, you kind of didn't want it to be too nonsense, but I didn't think it got too bad there at the end. But in the end, DIY retains, which I think most of us picked at the end of the day. So that will move us on to the title match coming up next as they show off Pat McAfee's stats on the broadcast.
Amazing.
So the world title match is completed, and it was a bloody physical affair that Cody Rhodes ends up retaining by giving Kevin Owens the most ridiculous Alabama slam through a ladder and then going up and pulling down the titles to win the match. And it was just a vicious affair, and then kind of making a point to like pose over top of Owens, who was a bloody mess and basically couldn't get him up off the ground. Well, let's start with Rachel. Your overall thoughts on the match and maybe even the post-match a little bit.
Oh my gosh. Like, I'm shocked that both of them can even move. I mean, obviously Kevin Owens still trying to move. I mean, it was exactly what it was going to be. Like, it's a grudge match. Like, they were best friends, and then Kevin Owens felt cheated. Obviously, he felt like people were betraying him, and I mean, rightfully so. I'll be interested to see if they have another match between those two, or if Sammy tries to avenge Kevin. Or I mean, obviously, Kevin's gonna be mad at Sammy because Sammy didn't do anything. So yeah, I have no idea where that's gonna end up.
Yeah, it's definitely set up a bunch of different possibilities. Mike, your thoughts on that?
Kevin Owens, at the moment, is my MVP.
Yeah.
This guy, every time he's in any kind of match that involves ladders, it seems like he goes through some of the most brutal bumps, and tonight was no exception. The landing after the Alabama slam onto the folded up ladder with just on his head basically was such a good visual. And, I kind of wonder where they're going with Cody. Is that they had the promo between he and CM Punk where Punk was kind of like pointing out the fact that he just looked worn out and just kind of disheveled from these months of being champion. And then you see tonight, like him kind of celebrating over top of the broken Owens. It just seems like, I don't know where his character's going, if we're going more dark side with it or what. It'll be interesting, but yeah, that match certainly lived up to the hype.
It was very interesting because they had him go back and pose over Owens again, clearly, and it makes me wonder if Sami Zayn isn't going to win the Royal Rumble and challenge Cody, and then you either have him beat Cody and have Owens come back, and then Owens turns on him again, NXT style, or you have Owens cost him the title, and then they begin their feud. Like, there's a lot of different possibilities there, but it's funny because I thought Owens winning would signal maybe Zayn's going to win the Royal Rumble. It's actually kind of reversed, that I think maybe Owens losing the way it all happened might actually make it more likely that Sami might win the Royal Rumble.
It's another instance where you feel like the writers are trying to plant as many seeds in your head as humanly possible. I mean, we've had weeks where you've had people talk to Sammy and kind of treat him like, we don't really think you're going to be able to do it, but hey man, just give it your best shot, do something for yourself. Like, I don't know if it's going to be this year, but Zayn's going to win a Rumble eventually, and he's also going to win the world title eventually.
Yeah.
And the interpersonal relationships between all of these wrestlers, they're going to be able to create a crazy story that's going to be right up there with the best plots they've had.
No question about that, as they continue to show celebrities, and we're going to get ready. There's Kai Cenat, one of the top streamers on any platform in attendance for this event. And they did announce during the event, worth noting, that the WWE Evolve is going to begin airing in March. It'll be March 5th on Tubi, which is a free-to-watch service. It is notable that is on a Wednesday night at 8 o'clock. So now WWE coming back with their developmental of developmental airing up against AEW. That's pretty interesting, is it not?
Very.
It's about time we got pro wrestling on Wednesday nights again. I've missed it. It's been a while since NXT days.
True story.
I think it goes to show you how they're not concerned with what their numbers look like versus AEW. They just want to have some sort of footprint every night of the week.
And on different platforms too.
Yeah. I mean, it's clearly they're trying to make a statement, but sure it'll be an interesting night on the old Twitter machine for Tony Khan, because I'm sure he'll have something to say about it, and we'll all be waiting for it to show up on social media. But it should be very interesting. The only thing left on this PLE is the Royal Rumble men's match. We'll talk about that very soon because it's getting ready to get underway. Men's Royal Rumble match is complete, which means this event is complete. And believe it or not, it is main event Jey Uso standing at the end of the main event. He wins the Royal Rumble by eliminating John Cena at the very end of a very long Royal Rumble match. Had a lot of surprises, or at least a few surprises. Joe Hendry showing up certainly made everybody happy. The return of AJ Styles was certainly a welcome sight to everybody. It was almost two matches in one. You had a lot of your smaller guys, luchadors, early in the match. It made for a very entertaining start to the match. And then you had really a first ballot Hall of Famers, one after another, coming through at the end. And let's talk about the result and the aftermath of that. And then we'll get to probably what was the most interesting part. We'll start with Mike. Your thoughts overall on the Royal Rumble and kind of on the end and where we're going from here.
It's an interesting time because there were so many winners that you thought, or so many wrestlers that you thought had a legitimate shot at winning it. I really thought they were going to use this in the Elimination Chamber to put Cena and Punk in main event opportunities, but not super shocked that Jey Uso won just because the guy is so incredibly over with the crowd. Got the biggest catchphrase in wrestling presently. They've done everything they can to get him to this level, so I'm not surprised. I guess I just didn't, and presumably he's going to go on to wrestle Gunther and probably beat him at Mania. I guess I just didn't think that was where they were going with it. Yeah,
a little bit surprised, but yeah, I mean, as far as like picking a winner, that makes a lot of sense because of just how over he is with the crowd, as you see as he celebrates here at the end. Rachel, your thoughts on again the match in general, but the winner specifically?
I'm excited for Jey. I did not expect it at all, but even like when we got down to the last like 6 to 8 people, we were even saying how everyone had a shot. There was no one in the match at that point that looked like they couldn't win the match. I mean, I think he would have been probably my last pick, I never would have imagined that he would have eliminated Cena, but I'm shocked, but I'm excited for him. He deserves it.
Yeah, for sure. And what a match it was. And like I said, a lot of great stuff. Let's talk just before we get to the kind of what I think is the main plot point coming out of this. Thoughts on the match overall? Joe Hendry in it. Great to see him. Got a great reaction. Styles back. The early part of the match, like I said, kind of dominated by smaller guys, luchadors, really entertaining stuff. Really felt like two matches. That first segment, then you had the reset kind of in the middle. You had Penta with a really great showing. Just with Mike first, overall, we're going to have Pat McAfee go into the ring, of course.
He's got to eat.
And eat with him. Your thoughts kind of on the overall rest of the match?
Yeah, overall, I really enjoyed it. I felt like with the exception of the iShow Speed point, you really didn't have any people that didn't deserve to be in the match. I think that's always good to see. You felt like they all belong there. Hendry's appearance was good. You got to see him do his finishing move to Miz. The crowd was totally behind him. You had a feeling they weren't going to have him hang around a while because you don't want to give the crowd any kind of false possibility that he's going to win it.
Yeah.
Or run the risk of having one of your baby faces eliminate him, because that's never a good idea. Penta's performance was great. Breaker looked great. It'll be interesting where we go here, obviously, because you had Jey Uso eliminating Sami Zayn, who was also involved in the title match between Cody and Kevin Owens. I feel like you have a lot more of this weird turmoil between your main characters going on, so I'm anxious to see what's next as far as this storyline. Where are we going from here? Yeah,
and we'll get to the main point in a moment. Rachel, your general thoughts on all that other stuff?
I mean, I thought it was a great match. I love the what they're doing with CM Punk and Roman Reigns and Seth Rollins. I think that's going to be exciting. The beginning of the match with Rey Mysterio and Penta starting it out. I think those were two people that could easily start out the Royal Rumble and make it exciting, and they did. I love seeing Joe Hendry. I was pretty excited. I think I fangirled just a little bit, and I love seeing AJ Styles back because I don't know if it was really certain if he'd come back from this injury.
Yeah, for sure. It's great to see him back in it. And Mike mentioned I Show Speed. Of course, Tozawa got attacked by Carmelo Hayes, and that opened the door, and they needed somebody to take his place. And, of course, I Show Speed was back there ready to jump in. And, again, not a wrestler. He got to come in and do a couple things that were fun. Then he got his life speared out of him by Braun Breaker and tossed out onto Otis, who then could have saved him, but because he helped eliminate Otis just tossed him back over the table and eliminated him. So, again, that clip will probably get 10 billion views online, which is why WWE does it. Makes it a lot of sense. Again, the big plot point that came out of this, I think maybe even bigger than the winner, and I don't mean to take anything away from Jey Uso, was the sequence of events where you had CM Punk come up and eliminate Seth Rollins and Roman Reigns, and then Logan Paul would eventually eliminate CM Punk, but it resulted in a brawl on the floor that ended with Roman Reigns taking a 2-footed stomp first on the floor and then a stomp on the stairs. Clearly, there's a lot of on the bone still for those three guys in particular. Mike, your thoughts on that, and maybe even kind of overshadowing the winner a little bit?
Yeah, it's difficult because at the end of the day, yeah, Jey Uso is super over right now, but I don't think you can say that ultimately he's a bigger star than Reigns, Rollins, or Punk.
Yeah.
Very few are. I think we still need that ultimate match between Reigns and Rollins because they've been... their rivalry and their hatred has been so front and center for so many years, played such a pivotal point in WrestleMania last year. And I think you add Punk to the mix where, he, as far as the story goes, he was kind of the guy that brought in the Shield to Raw originally to begin with. And, they don't like him. You have his connection with Paul Heyman. I don't know what they plan on doing exactly for the next few months, but I can't wait to see it.
For sure. Rachel, your thoughts?
I mean, I agree. Definitely the animosity between Seth Rollins and Roman Reigns is still very, very much there. And I mean, Seth Rollins has a right to be upset at Roman Reigns for how he was treated last year by Roman Reigns at this time. And obviously CM Punk and Seth Rollins have issues. So yeah, I mean, I'll be anxious to see what match comes out of that for WrestleMania.
Yeah, it's going to be really fun to see how all that works out. And a reminder, we're, a month away from the Elimination Chamber in Toronto. There were several times in the ring where you could have taken everybody in the ring, put them in an Elimination Chamber, and it would be a pretty outstanding match. So I think we are on our way to what is going to be an amazing road to WrestleMania, which again comes up in Las Vegas, which should always be a good time. As we get ready to wrap up both our live watch along and our podcast, Rachel, I'll start with you with your final thoughts on the Royal Rumble.
I'm excited about the returns tonight, specifically AJ Styles, Alexa Bliss. Happy for Jey Uso. Everything else was pretty much what I expected, but it was a great night.
And I believe Rachel just confirmed by Chris in the chat winning the overall scorecard. We were waiting on the men's Rumble to come in, and it was an interesting night on the scorecard for sure. In the end, she edged me by 3 points. Chris at 79, Mike at 64. But again, it was such a hard card because the Rumble matches counted so heavy, all the individual things, and that definitely made it a challenge. Mike, your final thoughts on the Royal Rumble?
Not my best performance on the scorecards by any means, but both in the men's and the women's Rumble match, you saw glimpses at what could be really cool feuds and matches in the future. All speed ahead to WrestleMania. We'll see what we got next.
Yeah, and of course, we've got, again, the stop of the Elimination Chamber. We've got NXT events coming up as we continue to build that road, and there were even some things that happened tonight that might end up in matches in NXT. Where does Jordynne Grace go now that she's in the company? Does she start on Raw or SmackDown? Does she go to NXT? Lots of unanswered questions, and that's what you should get out of the Royal Rumble. You should get some answers, but you should get a lot more questions as we're going to build this card to WrestleMania. And I think we are well on our way to what should be an amazing next couple of months as we take things all the way up to the Showcase of the Immortals coming up in Las Vegas. And that, folks, is going to wrap things up for this first ever watch along event and our podcast as well. Great to have you along with us. Big thanks to everybody who dropped in throughout the night. We really appreciate it. A new venture for us to give this a shot, and it was a lot of fun, and we'll continue to try to work on this. If there's interest in us doing more of these, we'll continue to do that. And probably for the biggest PLEs, we'll probably save it for, but definitely an interesting experience all around to try to get this off the ground tonight. So we really appreciate it. Big thanks to Chris for all his help in the chat and with keeping up with the scores and his comments and moderating occasionally. We really appreciate that. Big thanks to Mike and Rachel as well in the studio. And a big thanks to you all for listening, whether it was live, on the VOD, wherever you might have heard us. We really appreciate it. Reminder, Mike and I will be back in less than 24 hours for Music Weekly. It'll be the music of January the 17th, coming up tomorrow night, 7 o'clock Eastern. That's midnight GMT on Monday morning. We'll be with you for another episode of Music Weekly. And then Mike and I will have all the news from the weekend. Does the OhioCon dumpster fire page give us some details on what happened there? What Japanese group has stopped performing? We'll tell you all that Monday morning, 9 a.m. Eastern time on Nerdcast News Report. But that's going to wrap things up for the entire crew. I am Matt saying so long. Don't forget to join the Empire, the Nerdcast Empire.